consider myself a dilettante in that I like to get my hands dirty with everything, especially if it sort of has some kind of creative component. So most recently, my scripted podcast, The Control Group, has started the release of its second season called Civil Defense, wherever you get your podcasts. My previous podcast was The Seventh Daughter, and of course, The Control Group Season 1. Prior to getting into podcasts, I'm an independent filmmaker. My films include, I started with a documentary about the explicit driver education films, which you may have seen if you were my age when you were in high school. And the documentary is called Hell's Highway, the true story of highway safety films. And then from that, I went into narrative indie filmmaking with films like Psychopathia Sexualis, The Unwanted, and most recently, Those Who Deserve to Die. Done some writing about film. I've done occasional audio commentaries because for my day job, I work in film distribution for Kino Lorber, where I produce archival releases, whether it's silent movies. I'm the silent movie guy at Kino Lorber, and I also assist in various capacities with sort of the Euro horror films of the 70s, the new studio releases, and occasionally our contemporary theatrical releases. So I've got a lot of plate spinning, and
That's how we like it.
And sort of the jack of all trades, and hopefully one day I'll be the master of one. But for now, I'll just enjoy the different things I'm doing.
For sure.
That's me in a nutshell.
Certainly. I mean, I know, Chris, you were digging into a bunch of the stuff today. I must confess, it took me a day or so to finally get into the season 2 because, of course, it released. You gave me some early releases, things that I just didn't have a chance to dig into them until today. But season 2 of The Control Group is fantastic.
Thank you.
And does
Stepping
some
it
fun
up for sure. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, and does some fun things sonically that are very challenging to pull off. And as we were talking about earlier on our sort of our pre-show, will make editors murderous. But I think have you worked with your editor in the past?
Yeah, Rob Gal is he records it, he mixes it, he does the music for it, and is really amazing at creating the different ambiences in which scenes take place. So he'll say, like, what size room is it? It's a basement. Okay, is the basement full of stuff or is it empty? So that hopefully as you're moving from one location to another, we don't have to tell you we're moving to a new location. You'll just feel the sound change. And of course, there'll be maybe a different ambient soundtrack element. So we're trying to make it really sort of seamless and fluid, because without saying anything potentially spoilerous, later in the season, this one story bleeding into another is going to become more of what the series is about. It's going to become.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of a hint of where we're going.
I was hoping that when I listened to the first episode of season 2, because I could feel that you might be building to that, but that's awesome.
Well,
hopefully,
there's a fun, like, little kind of parallel chain there going on with the mother-daughter thing in and of itself. I'm not sure if that's foreshadowing or what, because again, I haven't listened to the rest of it, but it's definitely fun. For those who don't know, give us kind of a quick rundown of what the second season is about, because it's very different from the first season, which is more about kind of the experiments the CIA did in sort of mental or sanitariums. Unfortunate.
And just to interject for a sec.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I could just interject for a second, I'm going to post in the Twitch stream the link for the podcast for people to check it
awesome.
out. But go ahead.
For sure.
Right, so season 2 is about this small town in 1965 where the sirens begin to go off. The TV announces that America is under nuclear attack. and how different people react to that. Primarily a mother-daughter. The father is out of town on business. We find out in episode 1 he's not out of town on business. He's somewhere else.
Right.
And it's going to follow them over the course of 7 episodes as they deal with this catastrophe that is, in the act of happening. And they're kind of in a protected area because they're in the valley. So they are cut off from the rest of the country. There's no communications. And so it's this little microcosm of America under attack and dealing with the panic of, I guess coming out of it was recorded during COVID, when we were all kind of sheltering in place. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with where certain elements of the story came from.
There was certainly a whiff of that. It definitely felt like, and even up to including the kind of trigger warning that happens at the beginning of the whole thing, where this is about a nuclear holocaust and the death of all human life.
Because
I love that.
With my previous show, The Seventh Daughter, we got a lot, and also with the first season of Control Group, we got a lot of pushback because of the adult content.
Yeah,
and especially with the Control Group. But there, we had to add trigger warnings.
Yeah.
We had to censor it. We had to. There's about the equivalent of 3 episodes missing of The Seventh Daughter because not all because of objectionable content. A lot of it's just for making the story faster, but there were things. It was right when Me Too was happening, and no, you can't do that. Let's not do that. We better not do. We can't have a character like that. That sends the wrong message.
Yep.
And so for the new show, I decided, you know what? Here's the trigger warning. Quote: the Control Group depicts a nuclear catastrophe and the complete annihilation of the human race. Listener discretion is advised.
So
all right.
You're all right with that.
We're destroying the world, so. Don't complain to us about anything else that happens in the story, because if we're going to destroy the world, that kind of that's a blanket trigger warning that should cover everything else. But there is one other episode which who knows may even get its own trigger warning. But
it's going to go very A Boy and His Dog. Which holy shit! You want to talk about a show or a movie that absolutely has the most innocuous title and is completely fucked.
Right.
Holy cow. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Don Johnson. Yeah.
Oh my
It is.
word.
I mean, I'll go on the record and say that there are some very offensive things in A Boy and His Dog. And I don't think that it shouldn't have been made, but yeah. I think that it's probably appropriate to give that one a warning. It's a pretty weird story. It's really interesting. Remind me who the writer was again. Do we know?
I don't even.
The writer of that.
I don't have it at the top of my head.
It wasn't Harlan Ellison. It was somebody like him.
Sounds familiar.
Anyway.
Though.
But
I do have a question.
But it's funny. It's almost like they would intentionally choose an innocuous title. Just recently, I discovered a post-apocalyptic film very similar to the Control Group called Ladybug. And I would never pick that up off the shelf and look at it, but it's about this elementary school where they get a warning that there's a nuclear attack and how the children react to the fact that they're in the middle of a nuclear attack.
So there's an interest, just to make it real quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Mike.
I was just going to say, have you heard of Jericho?
Yeah.
Jericho, I don't know.
Jericho's a TV
Walls.
show about a
the
town.
Walls, I know.
No, it's about a town that literally survives the nuclear holocaust, but then it's a town in a valley that is cut off from the rest of society. I'm just
All right.
You should probably go look
down.
Yeah.
But I love the whole genre. There's one No Blade of Grass is about, it's in England, and it's about this valley that spared by and so everyone's trying to get into the valley, and the people of the valley are trying to defend themselves against the either marauders or survivors. But the whole you gotta love post-apocalyptic
absolutely.
movies.
Do you have the character
Ayatollah
that is
rock and
still
roll.
trying to live their life like there's nothing wrong?
I should say the first part again.
do you have the token character in your storyline that is trying to live their life like nothing's happened?
I mean, in some ways, everyone does because, look what we were doing during COVID.
Yeah.
As we're hearing, hundreds of thousands of people have died. Yes, they're telling us we're in a national health emergency, but at the same time, we're in our pajamas. It was kind of hard to feel the horror of it. Maybe being in New York is very different. I work from home. I live in Atlanta, so my life didn't change that much, but you would think that it would have been a little scarier than it actually was.
It depended on who you were. I knew people that did die, so it was a little bit more closer to home for me, and I got more involved in paying attention to the deaths and reporting it for people, because there's a lot of people that couldn't handle dealing with the horror face to face every single day. They would ask me.
Yeah. It was a really weird.
It's got to be weird, when the people who are deeply affected are up against the people who are like, "Where's my toilet paper?"
Oh yeah.
Some people it's life changing, and for other people it's an inconvenience. So maybe a nuclear attack would be similar in some way.
God, you would hope not, but I mean, So what's who the hell wrote it? This is how the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper.
Oh, that's
Is it T.S. Eliot?
Yes.
Pascal?
Yes. No, T.S. Eliot. You are
T.S. Eliot. Thanks.
And
yeah, you're right.
Nice.
And, I mean, it felt real. Like there was a point during the real peak as things were like, hey, 4,000 new cases in Atlanta per day, and you're like, what the fuck? People
and
outside
Stephen King
my
was
window.
even like, this is not Captain Trips.
Yeah, right. Jeez, let's not go there. It was a whole weird process, and you're absolutely right. The quantity of denial that still exists. I mean, people who are still like, it's a fucking hoax, the China whatever, and you're like, are you really? I had a bunch of people on a social group that I'm part of who are now going off about how, doctors have been hiding all these drugs that prevent millions of people from getting these things, and you're like, do you really think that happens? Because the only thing that the people here on this stream have anything to say is, like, from a material standpoint, is our fiction is the only place people can keep a secret. Doesn't happen anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. To keep a secret, you need only one person. Fuck. I was also just a heads up too, there is a new strain that has been found, or that's going on elsewhere, but the first case of it in Northern California recently. So I still don't leave the house without a mask.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Not doing it.
Yeah. No, we're back to wearing masks here in New York again too. Delta variant and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're reading about it. It's still killing people everywhere else, and I'm sure it will be a problem here eventually. I hope it's not a big problem. But let's bring our audience down a little bit, shall we?
No, we're good.
This is our current event, We had to hit the news again.
For sure.
We are horror.
Can't get enough.
It's true.
We are a horror podcast.
Truth is stranger than fiction sometimes.
Good point, Mike. Yes, exactly.
So, but that said, I mean, looking at the control group, the control group season 2, you're digging into this like whole moment of panic right at the beginning as the sirens go off, and you've got the woman for, like, what is it? Good Housewives. What's her show?
Helen Huntley, Woman's World is her TV show.
And she's like on with an interview, and people stop talking in the control room. She's like, "The fuck are you guys? What are you doing?" It's almost Ron Burgundy-esque in the sense she's like, "What the fuck, guys? Where's my teleprompter?" And then she just goes. She's like, "Nope. All right, this is how we're gonna go. I'm gonna find my niche, and then I'm gonna flow into it." And as a fellow writer, I gotta take my hat off to you, because the dialogue in that, the way that psychologically, like, that train runs, just hit on such a T. You're like, oh, okay, yep. This is watching the world burn as a person who's on the TV and like has as their responsibility for kind of being the functional opiate, keeping people calm.
Wow, you
All
just
right,
made
cool,
me think
go.
of something I haven't thought of in a long, long time. Did any of you ever listen to Roger Waters' solo album that had to do with the end of the world? What was that one called? Radio Chaos.
Gonna give you an automatic no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Radio Chaos was brilliant because it's all about a DJ at the end of the world that's doing exactly what you were just talking about, where he's like, okay, well, world's ending. Anybody got any requests? I don't know what to do.
Purple
I'm just
Rain.
going to stay here. Yeah.
But one of my hugest influences is Dawn of the Dead. And so I was, to some degree, consciously doing the whole TV station on the brink of chaos.
Yeah.
Trying to keep the supers up and tell people where the emergency centers are. And the Helen Huntley character was she's kind of a joke. She's kind of played for laughs, both in season 1. She's one of the few characters to come from season 1. But as in season 1, she also plays because she is such a familiar presence to the women characters, she's inside their heads. And, so she's kind of their comfort. She's the thing that they listen to every morning. Yep. So in times of stress, the voice of Helen Huntley is where your mind wants to go.
Well, it's crazy from that point of view because I know. Oh, please go ahead, Chris.
Oh, he's delayed.
Yeah, I think I'm lagging because everything I say is delayed. So I'm gonna jump out. Go ahead, Clayton. I'm gonna jump out and.
Oh, and he pushed the button.
He jumped out.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And back in. So there's I've got a couple of friends who are reporters. One of whom runs as a. She does a bunch of stuff with she did a bunch of stuff with CNN. She's done a bunch of stuff since, and it is hilarious for me just from sort of behind that fourth wall going, I see the character and then I see the person, and to watch that character pop between the two of those was really gratifying. I mean, I don't know that anyone else in the world is going to pick up on the nuance, but you've included a colossal amount of nuance in this first. I mean, not even getting into the sound design and then jumping between radio ad versus radio show versus whatever. I mean, you're very Inception about it. So, again, sort of the.
No, thank you. I used to work in television news right out of college, and I was always amazed. There was a local TV anchor in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who's just like the good-looking guy with a big old mustache, but he was really good. And they could talk to him on the earpiece, and he would be able to continue saying one thing while processing instructions in his ear. And I don't think anyone in the public knew how good this guy was. It's kind of like in broadcast news where the William Hurt character, he's kind of adult, but at the same time, he is really good at what he does. And so that's kind of a little bit of where Helen Huntley came from. But before we get away from CNN, we just got to share the cool, weird stuff. One of the many things that was in my mind when I'm doing this and that I found was that supposedly, and it turned out to be true, that Ted Turner, who started CNN, was told, said that CNN will be on the air as long as America is around, and if the bombs fly, we're going to play Nearer, My God, to Thee. And there is a recording you can find online of this military band out in front of Turner Studios playing Nearer, My God, to Thee.
You're kidding.
And the urban legend is it was to be played in the event of a full-scale nuclear catastrophe.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it's real. And who knows if he actually intended it or if it was just because that was his personality to kind of be a little outrageous and outspoken. But it's when you watch it, it puts a chill down your spine because it's poorly shot. and you realize this could be the last thing people are watching. Is this like military band playing this clunky version of "Nearer, My God, to Thee" out in front of Turner Studios? But we probably will be watching TV.
For
what
sure.
will be on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a funny story. I had a client once upon a time, who was close enough with Ted Turner such that he had, and I shit you not, in his living room, a massive self-portrait of him arm in arm with Ted Turner. I kid you, it is an oil painting that is larger than I am. And so he's got Ted Turner and him. Last name happens to be Howell. We'll call him Thurston. That's not his actual name, but there were multiple. It was a third, fourth generation kind of guy. $13 million house in Buckhead, and I kid you, this is absolutely how that works. There is such a bizarre that culture and the mindset present in it and the world they live in is so dramatically different from anyone else.
It's like, I've got the lapel pin, let me into the bunker.
Yeah.
Let me into the goddamn 100%. Bunker. I got the lapel pin.
Yeah. People want to make fun of Bethesda with the whole, Vault-Tec and so on. That's 100. I fully believe those guys have their fucking vault.
Oh yeah. But the reality of Cheyenne Mountain and all these different things is pretty crazy. And the deeper you get into it, you realize that it's all very real. And in fact, there's the thing in the control group, which I was convinced I had read it in a book about the button. And it comes up in episode 3. It's a device. It's basically a button device called the LMOE, the Last Man on Earth. And I was convinced that it was real because I've been reading all these books, and then I went back to the books to try to find where it was I had read this, and I couldn't find it. So I think maybe I made it up, but because it's not as crazy as a lot of the actual doomsday devices
you wrote that episode in a fugue connected to the collective unconscious.
I think if you told people younger... Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm lagging again. I think if you told younger people that there's such a thing as the football, the political, the football that the Secret Service carries for the president, that they would have a hard time even believing that. And that's pretty obviously necessary in the world that we live in, sadly. But
I mean, hell, we've had TV shows about it.
Much weirder than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's
much weirder.
I just like throwing all the weird footnotes at you guys I can, because this is my chance to do it. When I work in film restoration, I get to go to the Library of Congress's film storage unit in Culpeper, Virginia, which was built as a fortress that was protected from nuclear attack, where gold and currency would be stored so that once America is devastated, we would be able to rebuild our economy.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime, I guess, in the 80s, it was decommissioned. Right. And so, but now I love the fact that now it holds nitrate film, rare audio recordings, and keeps them protected, not necessarily from nuclear attack, but it's so strange to think that our film history is being stored in a nuclear, something that was designed to protect America's economy after the nuclear attack.
Well, and you want to talk about the irony in that, because isn't all the nitrate film like just a couple of drops away from exploding into flames?
Yep. Just needs a little bit of heat.
I mean, I don't want to steal the show, but the throwback to, we wrote a story in Garfield's Crossing specifically about how the nitrate film someone's got all in their safe winds up being an impromptu bomb. Like, Kodak, what the fuck?
I burned some once just to see how flammable it is. It took a second to light, but boy, once it lights, it accelerates.
Yeah.
And and then it'll eat all the oxygen. It can't get the oxygen fast enough. It just becomes a fireball. Yeah.
Hey Bret, can I ask you a question? I came up with a couple of things I wanted to ask you specifically. My top three, specifically about writing, because I get that you're a director, but you're also a writer. You're a creator, but you basically are the guy that comes up the germ of the idea and sees it through and makes it into a world. And I'm fascinated by that process. I've had a little bit of experience with it myself in Mandible Judy and Under Dead Water, but I'm relatively new to it. And I'm curious. There's just as a preamble. There's a story. I wonder if you've heard it about Bob Dylan meeting Leonard Cohen. I don't know if you're a fan of either of them. But the story goes that they were talking about songwriting, and I think this applies to any kind of writing, really. And Cohen said, I really love "Blowing in the Wind." What an amazing song, And Dylan says, well, "Hallelujah," that you wrote is just astounding. Like the lyrics to that. How long did it take you to come up with that? And Cohen sort of gets glum and he says, 5 years of banging my head against a hotel floor. Right. And then he says, well, "Blow in the Wind, how long did it take you?" And Dylan says, 5 minutes. So I'm wondering where you lay on that continuum. Are you the kind of guy that tortures yourself? And I know a lot of them, and it doesn't mean that the work is any better or worse. It's just your personal process. Or are you one that knows enough to say, and this is why I've come to a point where I've started, now I'm in my ripe old age, I've started to realize that this one has legs. This one I'm going to have to beat to death before I can find the legs. Is that work for you? Is that something that you experience in your work?
Well, the kind of writing I enjoy best and tends to be the better writing is when you can't move the pen across the paper fast enough.
Yeah.
But the problem is it's so hard to get in that zone. I mean, and so what I'll say is, I'm going to begin by reviewing and editing what I've written already. And that's just like torture editing. I hate to edit, but
God, it's the worst.
So hard to like get some air under your wings and get going. So and sometimes you just wait and wait and wait for it to happen. I would, and I have things I've been working. I have scripts that are unproduced that I've had around for years, and I will occasionally revisit one and get an idea of, if I just change this, the pieces are gonna come together, and that sort of re-energizes it. But usually, if I have to labor over something too much, it's a sign that you have to labor a little bit as far as plotting. There's a great Billy Wilder quote where he says, "Hollywood is full of great dialogue writers. Everyone can write dialogue, but there's only a handful of really good plotters." And I totally agree with that. And that's the thing that is the most work, is getting the pieces to fit so that this leads to that and the audience gets to discover things. And that's what I always strive for, is so that you don't explain anything, but that the audience figures it out when you kind of want them to figure it out, and they get a moment of discovery, and that causes them to be engaged in a way that they wouldn't be if you're just dazzling them with brilliance, But
follow up if I can. Yeah, that's great, and that's exactly what I was kind of imagining might be the process. So as far as that moment, how much did making films help you with figuring out pacing for audio drama, figuring out scene cuts, where to cut, where to, because it's so hard in a film.
Like everyone, I wanted to be a filmmaker. That was the ultimate dream. And then having made 4 narrative features. It's just so exhausting, and it uses every ounce of your energy, every favor you can ask of anyone else, every dollar in your bank account, and it breaks your heart because your movie comes out and it does okay, but you never make your, you know what I mean? It's, and so I got the opportunity to do podcasting because a friend of mine named Sherry Larson, she went to work at the time How Stuff Works, and knew me from the independent film scene and said, you know, we want to do scripted. Why don't you try this? See if you might like it. And I tried it and loved it because no locations, no costumes, no makeup, no lighting crew, no camera crew. And you just step into the room and you've got actors. And so you write the scripts, the actors say the lines, and the, you know, the hours and hours of setup, and, you know, it just puts you, it puts you right up into the scene and lets you do the creative stuff in a very hands-on way. I mean, sure, it would be great to make movies and be able to express things visually, but there's so much I'm finding that you can do with audio that you would never have the budget to do.
Oh yeah.
You know, with a film. Like we have an outer space show where, you know, this is a show about, you know, there's riots and crowd scenes, and I could never do any of that with a film. But to kind of get back to your question, where I learn the most is in editing film, because inevitably you shoot the script. Oh, this, you know, this script is gold, and then you shoot it, and then you have to cut out about 20% of it that you have spent all your money filming, entire days of shooting. Just like, this scene doesn't work. But you don't understand. That day cost me $2,500. We got that location. It's like, and so you do learn to pre-edit a little more. And, you know, and that I still learn. Like I said, the control group, there were, you know, there's probably over an hour of material that was cut out of it. And a lot of it is just because it needed to be edited. So I guess that's just a slow, gradual process of learning, you know, of keeping yourself from doing way too much work and falling in love with my own writing and trying to put myself in the head of the audience.
You gotta kill your babies sometimes, unfortunately. To the same end.
You know,
I mean, that's the thing, though. It's 100%. I mean, it's brutal. You go, I spent X amount of time on this, and the X amount of love, and you don't understand my genius. There's this moment of
I screamed at the producer for an hour for this shot,
right? And you've and then the editor comes back and they go, so this grinds it to a halt. I mean, there's an e-brake involved in this particular. It's not good. We gotta cut. and it ends up, with very few exceptions, ends up making your product better. But man, does it hurt. Thus the phrase.
It's so hard to hear that.
Thus the phrase, kill your babies.
Let me ask each of you,
it's tough.
Whether it's podcasting or whether it's music creation, where's the fun part? What part is the most fun? When do you feel like it's flowing versus when you're like at the computer for hours? And you know what I mean? Like, what part of the process for you is the part where you say, this is why I do it? And don't say when you're cashing the residual checks, because
wait, there are residuals?
Wait, yeah, you get checks?
You can do that? I could pay my bills with this?
All three of us can answer this for sure. I'll go first really quickly. I don't know where it happens, but I know when it happens. I can feel it. There's something that happens where it's like, that happened, that was right. This actor did a great performance. That really, for audio drama, that's usually where it starts. Like, I can write whatever I write, but if the actor doesn't feel it and make it live, then I don't have any inspiration to finish it, you know. And I'm just so lucky. The two guys right here are both in my podcast, and they're both exceptional voice
Thank you.
actors. And I imagine they're both great on camera as well. I've never seen them on camera.
We'll see
for
about
now.
that. The sex tape comes out next year. I gotta get in shape first.
I had one of those in the '80s. Let's not bring that up. Okay?
No, I mean,
but
so,
I just go ahead, Clayton.
I was gonna say at a point during the writing where it just clicks in and you go, but then Chris, you're absolutely right. As it really doesn't take off, and you don't really get that fizz. I mean, and anyone who has experienced that knows what that feels like. That instantaneous methamphetamine hitch in the back of the brain. It just is the best endorphin rush to see a voice actor take something, especially if they do it differently than you had originally written it, and it is so much better when they do it. And you're like, fuck, why didn't I
had
think
that?
of that?
Yeah, that exact thing when I was doing the thing that I was presenting to what is her name, Margaret Weiss, for the Dragonlance thing. And the guy that I cast as the dwarf, I totally expected him to do the the Scottish accent thing.
But
he took it to a completely different place and nailed it. Like, it was brilliant. I was like, oh my God, it's perfect. It's perfect. Nothing. Yeah. Agreed.
Don't change
like,
a damn thing.
So excited.
You get
so excited.
Cut and go.
Yep.
There's a great Jean-Luc Godard quote, and I'm going to mangle it because I could never find it on the internet. What the hell, internet? Come on, deliver, man.
Say it in French and make it sound better.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to say it in French because no one will, even French people will not understand me. But it's something like this. A film dies on the page, is reborn in the shooting, dies again. Wait, sorry.
No, yeah.
Is reborn in the blocking, dies again in the shooting, is reborn again in the editing. I can't remember, but anyway, the final bit is it lives again on the screen because the audience brings it to life, and it's like it continually dies and is reborn throughout the process, and it's all about every time you have to focus in and make it and decide on a thing, you're killing it, right?
Yeah,
to some degree, but you're also giving it a potential for further life. So like when you're writing it down, that's what it starts with. It lives in your brain. It dies on the page. So it goes on from there. But basically, it all lives in the ideation, either your head or the actor's head or the audience's head, right? That's where a film or a audio drama or a piece of literature lives, I think.
Every time
you have to continually kill it to get there.
Every time a new creative mind gets hold of it, it breathes just that much more bit of anima back into it, and it launches it that much further down the line. It's such a beautiful thing to see. And anyone who's never experienced it firsthand is just missing out. You got to see that firsthand.
But the frustrating thing is that these music people who do live performance get that audience reaction. Live theater, they get that audience reaction. With podcasts and film, that's the frustrating thing, is that you hope it's connecting with someone. You hope that that someone out there is like being touched by it, but you just don't know. And
Bret, you don't enjoy screaming into the void?
Lonely. Yeah. I mean, you just gotta believe that there's someone out there who was you when you were 16, and you saw that movie that changed your life, and I just, that's my dream, is that there's just one person who something I've made changes their life. It would be nice if I could hear about it before I die.
Resonates
but,
so
I guess
hard.
That's a big part for me.
Oh yeah.
And
the
a 5-star review click on Apple Podcasts is great, but my wife's a film critic, and mostly used to be, because film criticism has been pretty much removed from our newspapers, other than so that used to be a place where you would make a film and you could like see what people thought of it. And it's, as we become more of a social media driven culture, you don't get that anymore. So the Control Group got a lot of hits season 1, a huge number of downloads, but there's maybe one review of it, and there's very little chatter. I mean, there must be somewhere, but so that's what I'm hoping. Like the future of new media with things like Twitch enable is a little more of a conversation, so that a creator can sort of connect with an audience somehow.
Yeah, I think that from that same point of view, I mean, I'm curious to see where you think that going, or where you see that going anywhere, as far as you're dealing with a radical amount of change in media and in how people consume media over the last 5 years. It has changed so dramatically, and then it got accelerated with COVID, where everyone got jammed in their homes, and certainly everyone from the audio drama or scripted podcast side of the house went, fuck, this is our opportunity. It's gonna get huge. We'll be great. And then it went nowhere. That's not true. Well, it did take an uptick, but we're all still trying to figure out what the fuck this giant thing of probability means. This
not to
huge
put
cloud.
too fine a point on it, but most of the time, a lot of the stuff that we create, especially during this period of our lives, is used as a distraction.
Oh, for sure.
People are not trying to listen to it to judge it, even though they might enjoy it. They enjoy it because it takes them away from the horror that is reality right now. Yeah. So they're like, thank you for taking me away from reality. I don't have time to write anything about this. Great job. See ya.
They're in the middle of catching their breath. And they go,
yeah.
Oh, okay, we're
good. I want to engrave that, the horror that is reality right now.
Nope, there you go. Quote for the day.
Through words you never spoken,
Well, welcome to the desert of the real.
Yeah.
But and this is true of film and podcast and everything, is that because it's been democratized so much that maybe the appetite and the consumption of it increased radically, but the supply increased radically.
Oh, for sure.
And iHeartRadio now puts out almost a new podcast a day.
Yeah.
And like
Jesus.
You can't keep up with
and
that.
Kino Lorber puts out probably 20 films a month. And that's one company. So, we're just flooding the marketplace. It's easier to get something out there, but I guess it's always been this way. The competition to get people to stop and pay attention is fierce.
That's a really interesting dichotomy to try and tackle, because you're dealing with two very almost diametrically opposed forces. The first is to produce something of high enough quality that it attracts an audience and captures that attention, because of course everyone's attention is so sought after these days, right? We've got, almost just these massive AI-driven mills that just suck in information and then spit it out in some other whatever format that we can all consume as we sit on the toilet and scroll on our phones. Or should be going to sleep and are not for 3 or 4 hours. So, but from our point of view, from the content creator point of view, we know that it costs a lot to produce that. To produce something that is quality, either you need a colossal amount of passion and interest and intrigue from all the people who are going into it, from the writer to the director, who are sometimes the same person, to the sound designer, to the actors themselves, who all of whom need to feed their families. And you simply can't do that with what I think a lot of the industry wants to then throw at a thing, because of course the industry is, and this sort of, and I don't want to get too far afield here, but this sort of goes at the point that Scorsese got vilified over in the last couple of months, is that cinema is going away, and in his point of view, cinema is anything that is not an original story, something that is tied to some franchise, and ultimately it's because our objective as business people is to produce something that's going to have a good return. Where when you put out something that is original and interesting, there's a huge amount of risk in that. And so you get a lot of these, this cycle of the repeats, and I'm going to take some, the Lion King reboot or the whatever, these things that are known quantities that have had successful track records, and we're just going to repackage them and put them together and put them out to a new audience. You watch the same thing happen with Star Wars, where it was almost the exact same trilogy, just with updated graphics and, frankly, worse editing. But I digress. So there is that challenge. How do you, as a creative, run what you want, right? Because you have a message and you have a vision that you're trying to get to an audience. How do you put that through and then attach it to the creative apparatus that's going to actually produce it, and then get paid ultimately? Because not only do we have bills, but the people who are involved in that have bills. The ugly nitty-gritty truth doesn't come out of the ether.
Well, I think one thing that, is that Mandible Judy has going for it is that there are so many episodes, and it is a more long-term continual, it's building. It's going to continue to build, and you're committed to it, and you're laying the foundation for something so that when someone discovers it, they've got a whole universe there to explore. My shows, which are a heavy lift on the production side, are 7 episodes. This one's 7 episodes. Seventh Daughter was 7 episodes. So when they come out, they get on the charts, they do well, and then see you in 2 years, because it's I want to do shows that I would, my dream would be to do a bi-weekly show and just let it be almost like a soap opera, just a real continual linear drama, and just let it go forever. But I haven't figured out a way to do that. And it's, it's even without all the heavy production, it's a big lift for the handful of people it takes to create a show. Even if you do a limited cast, y'all know.
Oh, for sure.
That's really insightful. Can I jump in for a sec?
Please.
Brett, Clayton and I and Mike, all three of us have discussed this before as one of the primary concerns of audio drama producers, and that is, how much through story do you inject into your episodes? How much, in other words, do you do single episode arcs, the old anthology style like Twilight Zone? Maybe the same characters appear, God, what's it called? Mulder and Scully.
X-Files.
Help me, Mike.
X-Files, yeah.
Yeah, X-Files. Thank you. It's somewhere in between, right? It's anthology in that something different happens every episode. What they now call Monster of the Week, I guess, right?
Yeah. Monster of the Week.
But all the really fun stuff as a writer comes in the through story, right? The season arc, right?
Yeah.
Or the multi-season arc, for that matter,
yeah.
Right? And so, but with an audio drama, you don't know how often people are going to be able to tune in. They might miss episodes. You want to believe that your fans are hardcore fans, every one of them, but they're not. You're just not going to get that. So the question becomes, is there a balance, right? I wonder whether you tackled with this issue. I'm starting to see, as I listen to more of your podcasts, the Control Group, how you deal with it, and I think it's a really inventive solution. But I'm just curious to hear your take on that problem.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Everyone wants your audience to be so devoted that they get all the references, they catch the Easter eggs, and they, you can mention a character from season 1 and they're like, oh, I recognize that voice. The reality is
Right.
it's probably just me. I don't know, maybe someone else does. But I did try to maybe, and I tried to tackle it, and I ended up kind of hitting a brick wall. There's a thing I wanted to do, but again, I may figure out how to crack it. A season about someone who produces an anthology show, so that some episodes are an episode of the anthology show, but there's this overarching story about the people who are producing this show. And so one episode might be about people listening to the it's about subliminal advertising, and then someone who uses subliminal messaging within an anthology show. So the cool thing is you can then talk about, you have the plot line of the people creating the subliminal stuff and the technology of it. You've got the individual episodes that have subliminal stuff in them, which I thought would be a blast for people to listen to and listen and hear, like, wait, what was that weird thing? Was that something? And then a story of people who gather together to listen to the show, starts having an effect on them. And like, is it all in their minds, or is this subliminal stuff actually working, so that you have essentially 3 stories going? But that's the brilliant idea that I have not cracked yet. So
I can speak a little bit to that.
It's $1 million question and challenge.
Yeah. So when we did that with Garfield's Crossing, and in fairness, Garfield's Crossing hasn't come out as a fully scripted audio drama yet, but the objective of the whole project was specifically that, is to go, okay, here's an anthology that's set in a specific setting, which then gives in the same sense that you get with the Twilight Zone or the Twin Peaks or whatever, you have sort of weird stories that happen that may or may not be fully connected. Or I think that really Supernatural does this well, where you've got a core set of characters that do have a kind of a monster of the week experience to them, but there is a larger experience that if you are a long-term fan and you do dig into, you'll experience the whole thing overall. And it makes it that much more like it's sort of a multiplier effect. The problem is, what Chris was saying is that if you don't have the people who get super into that and really dig in, if they just pick up an episode here or there, like I think the episodes here or there are enjoyable, but to really get the multiplier effect, you got to see the whole thing in its context. And that's
which you just reminded me too. One of the things that I wanted to bring up to Chris, and it was something that I thought of. One of my favorite authors, William Gibson, has this ability to do a story structure where he'll write like Neuromancer, and he'll take one character out of Neuromancer and go to Mona Lisa Overdrive, and it's the same character exactly, with a different name and identity, because necessity-wise. And then the story is built around that character. And then they'll take from that story another random character, build a new story, different identity, same character. But if you don't go back from the beginning and realize that, oh my God, that's so-and-so from then.
Yeah, you got Burning Chrome,
Yep.
Yeah, he does it really well. I mean, but there's also, you've got, I think to that effect, you have a very different beast. That particular trilogy is such a great trilogy, but you've got and there's a massive jump between Neuromancer and any of the other ones on there.
Yeah.
Because there's a 4th one in there that they do have some cross character spillover.
Yeah, it's the one about the
4th
singer.
book of the trilogy.
Right, exactly. I can't remember it now, but
before we get to Tau Ceti.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I think that to that same end, if we could crack the anthology in podcast form, I agree, Brett. It would make such a tremendous impact. The problem with that is you need the investment of your audience, and it's that same deal As we've all experienced, once you produce a thing, it ceases to be yours. You just got to hope your trajectory was right and that the audience is going to take that and spin it. Because taking in, for example, Supernatural or X-Files for that matter, or Buffy, or any of those things that were like these, little monsters of the weeks that really had a larger season arc. Those fandoms became so rabid. Well, actually, the perfect example of this is Firefly.
Yeah.
10 years later, people are still clamoring at the door. Bring back Firefly. We'll give you all the funding right up front. And Joss Whedon's like, I don't fucking care. Fox can eat shit. I'm not doing it. So I don't know that any of the people from a podcast can flip it. And I think the biggest challenge in all of that ends up coming down to the platform. The audience, at least the vast majority of the masses, still is dismissive of podcasts. Oh, you have a podcast? Oh, he has a podcast. Like, come on.
Even the people that are really into it. Chris brought up a great point some few episodes ago about the fact that you've got the Hollywood elite that are like, oh, cool, a new medium that I can get into. And so you're up against A-list actors all of a sudden. How are you going to compete with that?
Yeah, who give it the legitimacy. You're like, motherfucker, I've been doing this for how long? And you just jumped into it? Damn it.
Thanks, Nathan Fillion. I really appreciate you getting into a podcast and suddenly making me look like shit.
Yes.
100%. No offense, I love that guy. I met him downtown. Great guy. And he would actually laugh at that. He's got a great sense of humor.
It is a thing, though. I mean, and Bret, you've seen, I think, probably some more commercial success than the three of us have in terms of the content creators here. What's that?
On paper.
On paper? Fair enough.
Like David said, I would occasionally get these like reports of how many, and it was in the hundreds of thousands of impressions, and I'd be like, well, what's an impression? Or what's the difference between a download and an impression? So there would be big numbers, but what is that?
Right.
That where's the residual check? Where's the so you know what I mean? It's the thing we all chase. It's the big brass ring, and I think it's more the audience than the money. I'm sure. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so passionate about it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
do you think who's doing like a big Marvel, project is as and I'm being serious. Is it more about the audience, or is it more about the money or the? I don't believe that there's hardly anyone who's just making movies and podcasts for money.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's that easy. But at the same time, I don't know, maybe that's it. In order to get the audience of that scale and that depth and that's that dedicated, you have to make something that's going to have millions of listeners and consumers. And so you have to be a Spielberg, we all dream of being the creator who has the audience, but doesn't have to be concerned about the money, but it gets messy really quick. And the money is kind of what gets you the audience.
Well, yeah, the last time that I got paid,
I don't like
really,
think about
really
that.
well
Why
like this was when I was in the music industry, when I was, a lighting and sound designer, when I was on the road with, some of the decent bands that were out there. I got paid good money. And now, once the whole live music thing kind of died and, I got into this stuff, I'm not making, a living in this just yet. But at the same time, I'm also not looking to get famous or rich. I want to be able to make enough money to pay my bills and not have anxiety about my life. That's it. That's all I want.
Yeah, I think if you were to ask any of the people who are certainly on this chat, and I think that I could probably speak for the vast majority of the other creatives out in the audience, our main drive is exactly what you hit on earlier, Brett, in terms of I want to make the thing that changes one person's life. They hear that one episode, that one 15-minute stretch, and they go, fuck, that's the thing. That just gears lock in and they go, right? It gives them that little burst of inspiration. It gives them that little bump of whatever. I certainly, as a kid, remember reading a book or listening to a thing that I still go back to and I go, man, that was freaking cool, right? I think that is probably our key driver as creative. The troublesome bit is that we don't live in a post-scarcity society and we still got to pay the damn bills. And so how to do that without, like, because I don't think that any one of the, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think that anyone who really creates for a living has to have the crazy Hollywood estate. Maybe it's different for Zack Snyder, but I honestly can tell you, man, if I could live under some relatively small, comfortable means where I don't have to worry about the next bill, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, but I can still create for a living, that would make me just the happy as a pig in shit. Yeah. It would be the best damn thing in the world.
Yeah. I think one thing,
I think. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Brett. There's a little delay again. Please go ahead.
What I always try to do is and it is easy to forget that feeling of being a 16-year-old kid and having that switch thrown in your head. And I become cynical, especially about film. And that's why one reason I'm not making more films, because I became so cynical about it that I lost my love for, or not necessarily my love for film, but that feeling of I can't watch a movie and just be transported anymore. Occasionally it'll happen, but I've spent too long waiting, working in it and being frustrated by it. And so I'm finding a new way to tap into that moment of discovery about, hey, wow, wouldn't it be awesome to do this? I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
That's awesome. I mean, I actually have another question based on what you just said, but we'll see. I'll have to wait for that one. I wanted to interject. I don't think it's just about, and I agree with you, Clayton, that it is very much about the post-scarcity economy and all that. I think that, but it's also about we don't live in a pre-internet world anymore.
Yeah.
Because before the internet, there was not this insane glut of media.
Yeah.
And I mean, it existed, but it was manageable. You could go to your record store because it was harder to get things, right? You go to your record store, you go to your bookstore,
yes.
You go to the movie theater, you'd read the trade papers and you'd see what was coming out. And that's how you got your news, or word of mouth. You didn't have, news groups and Reddit and all this other stuff and Twitch and Twitter and everything, Facebook, which was just screaming in your ear is screaming in our ears every day. This is good. You should watch it. And I'm like, add it to the list of 10 billion things I need to watch/read. And my experience, and this is maybe somewhat instructive. I'm a little bit older than you guys, I think. But I in the 90s, and literally in 1989, actually, before the 90s, I put out my first record. And it was a complete labor of love. It was just like, I had been laboring in my, apartment in Brooklyn for years, making this really esoteric, sound collage-y, cut and paste, early sampling technology music, right? But super idiosyncratic. In fact, the record was called Idioglossia. I named it because it's literally the language that two people come up with right? If they don't want to speak to other people, they come up with a language of their own. And I felt like that's basically was the analog of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it out on this really tiny label. It turned out to be a bigger label than I thought it was, because they put out some like pretty famous, like they put out John Cage and things like that. But this was like an experiment for them. It was this new weird dude who just had this ridiculous thing that he was doing. And that one thing that I did has gotten me more recognition than anything I have. And ever since then, I've been chasing, right? The what is the new thing, I get into things. Yeah, we all have this experience, right? And none of these things have gotten me anywhere near that. I mean, because I've had probably 4 or 5 times in my life someone come up to me in a room of strangers and say, "Are you the Chris Burke who put out Idioglossia in 1989?" And I'm just like dumbfounded and like thankful, of course. But it's rare, but it happened to me, and I'm like, so this is really sad, because the lesson I take from that is probably not a good lesson, which is to basically do whatever the fuck you want and screw everything. Don't listen to anybody. Just put your passion into music, film, podcasting, and you'll get a return. And I don't know that I know any other way of doing things, so I'm probably still doing that. Yeah, but I mean, I think that it's probably a scary proposition at this point where there's such a glut of media, you know.
Yeah, you reminded me too. Anybody here know Bo Burnham?
Rant.
Have you heard of Bo Burnham?
Yeah, I know of Bo Burnham for sure.
He knows him. Okay, he just put out a special recently after being gone for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And he filmed the entire thing. It's called Inside. He filmed the entire thing while he was, at home. And he's a very intense guy. But his biggest hit from it, because he's a musical comedian, is called Welcome to the Internet. And the catchphrase of the song is a little bit of everything all of the time. And it's perfect. And you also reminded me, Chris, about that one moment when somebody recognizes you for something that was absolutely random. My moment like that was, no joke, on the highway near Jersey. We're like driving, and I was a roadie at the time. I was like the lighting guy for this.
What exit?
Band. Oh God, I couldn't tell you. I know the joke though. We were in the truck. We were in the cab of the truck, about to go pay a toll, and some car pulls up next to us, and the blank truck, so no name, nothing like that. The band was called The Make. They were big in the late 80s, early 90s in the New England area. Like, it was a club band. It wasn't even big, but they rolled down their window and like, "You guys are the roadies for The Make." And I was like, "Yes." Like, why? I'm a roadie. What? Okay. I'm cool with that feeling. Just whatever.
The thing that
it's awesome though.
Someone really needs to write a book, although I don't know who would read it, but young people today can't understand what it was like to have to seek out the music, the films before the internet, even before cable, when you would get your TV guide and you would circle the movies and and it was a real quest. Then video stores came out, and that was like opening floodgates, but there was something about it not being so readily available that just made you so hungry for it. And even if it's not exactly what I'm looking for, it's close enough. And so you discover new things. And it was, I don't know, that to me, I have a very nostalgic and romantic view of that time in my life of discovery and the quest for, media.
So it's a bizarre and ironic point here, because as we advance further and further in technology, and this is really only going to become relevant once we leave Earth, okay? So whenever the fuck that happens, you will hit a point where even if we go to Mars, it will make more sense and you can just from a pure economics point of view transfer more data over physical media than you can over an actual point-to-point laser or whatever the case is. So we're going to hit that point again where if we ever have colonies, a colony is going to experience that exact thing you're talking about again, because they're going to get a chunk of data and they're going to enjoy whatever the hell it is for however many months. It's going to get stale, and they're not going to have this instantaneous connection where they can just go and find on the internet.
I think Harlan Ellison hit on that in I think it was him. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Probably.
They talked about it in that same thing, that same glut.
I have a question from the Twitch chat for Bret. Corset Lore asks, "Hey Bret, any thoughts on your casting process? For example, did you write the role of Laura for Hannah Furman, or how did you guys meet? What was the genesis of that relationship? Because I've noticed that we've all noticed, I think, that she's been in a number of your projects, including the Control Group."
Both control groups, in fact, because she's Quasar 1 in the new season. I first worked with Hannah on The Unwanted. She had gotten a lot of attention from VHS, where she plays the woman with the split face. And The Unwanted was an attempt to make a more traditional, or not traditional, but the kind of horror movie that was becoming popular at that time. And the great thing about Hannah is she wants to act, and she is eager to embrace a role. There's not a lot of there's not any sort of, trying to think how to put it. It's just I love working with people who are excited to be working with me. I'll put it that way. And she loves the process, wants to work with me, is happy with the things we've done together, and trusts me so that I can write something, daring or risque or almost nonsensical, because she goes from playing this seductress, mysterious woman in season 1 to a totally unrelated character, a girl astronaut on a kid's sci-fi cartoon. But it's all the same sort of enthusiasm for the process. And I found most of the people I work with in the Atlanta theater scene. There's an actress who I absolutely adore working with named Minka Wiltz, and she plays the Queen in this new season, and she also played the mother in The Seventh Daughter. And she's someone who you can, it's like Clayton, when you're talking about when you give an actor a line and they read the line and it just floors you because it was beyond what you hoped it would be. And so I always try to find actors with stage experience and practical experience who take their craft seriously. When someone says, "Oh, put me in your show," I'm always like, I'm not being snobbish and saying, "Well, I only hire actors," but it's a matter of people who are committed enough to their craft that they want to. I'm investing my time in acting and learning my craft. That's who I'm going to choose, rather than a buddy of mine. So. And that's how you build like a nice team where you have this mutual trust. So I'm continuing to try to build a little family of actors who will, if you see my films and listen to my podcasts, you'll recognize people who I work with from one to another. And part of it goes back to, I'm not comparing myself. Orson Welles, who with a Mercury Theater had like a little stock company, and sometimes within a single episode would play multiple roles, and you would recognize George Coulouris and Everett Sloan. and it didn't matter that they're playing two roles in the same episode. It's this family of creatives, and I know who. Oh, okay, I want this kind of. I'm going to give it to this person because, I can. I know I can go to them for this, and they'll give that to me, and then hopefully so much more. So, by all means, working with actors is probably my favorite part of the process. But you do have to cultivate, I don't want to use the word stable, but a family of actors who you trust. And and you hope that one of them makes it, or many of them make it, and you can catch the draft of that, and they're hoping you'll make it, and your show will make it, and they'll draft off of that. And I hope that answers the question sufficiently, but that's a long-winded window into my world.
There is sort of a weird kind of where the pragmatism shows up there. I don't think that it borders on feeling a little bit dirty for me. To that same end where you're like, well, but if you make it big, I'll probably make it big, and so we kind of want to make it big together. It very much is a family in that sense. It isn't this. I mean, you're right. I use the term stable as well. The stable of actors you work with, but the family of actors is so much more true to the point, because when you have those people that you've built those relationships with, and you understand exactly where they're, the power that they can bring in a particular area. I know who I want to say something vulnerable. I know who I want to say something that's gonna make my skin crawl and make me want to get the fuck out of this particular room. And you love them for that. You're like, oh God, I don't want my mom to listen to this.
And there's also that really, really important thing with getting to know people. Like, obviously I didn't know any of you before I met Chris, and Chris recruited me for this job. And then, like, the impression that I've made upon you, hopefully, has been one where, you don't mind me being around.
Yeah.
And if I, ask something like, hey, I've got somebody over here that wants to ask you a question about something, you trust me enough to know that my judgment of this person is good enough that I'm not, leading you down a trail. And that's kind of the same thing I've been doing with, like, you were talking about riding the wave onto something. That animated movie that came out 2018, something like that. It was Zootopia. The first 15 minutes of the movie, the young rabbit. The girl that plays that young rabbit, who has, you hear an American accent in the voice and everything, is a 25-year-old British woman who I worked with for 2 years in North Hollywood. And, we were good friends, and found out they were both, voice actors. I helped her with an American accent. She helped me with a British accent. And then she got the Disney contract. And, we've talked back and forth a couple of times, but she's really, really busy now, obviously.
Yeah.
But we're still friends. It's still one of those things where, she specifically said, if I find something that, you'd be good for, I'll give you a shout. Okay, cool. And I leave it alone.
I think it may not be accurate, but I think that at least in the voice acting business, at least certainly in the scripted podcast business, we get very tight knit. We all feel very ragtag. We all feel like we're kind of at the end of the world, where it's the Wild West for all of us out here, and we got to watch out for each other. And so you do get a tremendously tight-knit group of people. Man, it's funny you talk about Hannah. We had Hannah on in Medias Res a couple months ago now, and that passion for being a part of a thing that has passion, it's like this. It's this doubling effect. If she feels that you're excited about your project, she can't help but get excited about your project. And the amount of extra effort she throws into that, I mean, she will throw everything into it, and you're like, that's the energy that you want. That's what you want to pull into it. That's a cool thing. How do you
at a certain point you need it. At times, everyone needs. Everyone runs out of steam, when an actor comes in and they're stoked about it, it gives you that energy you need.
You're reminded this is why I do this thing.
Yeah. I wanted to. Mark has turned his camera on. There's Mark, by the way.
Hi,
So Mark, if I can embarrass you completely, Mark is the youngest member of our cast. I teach at a university in New Jersey. Mark was a student there at the time. You were in drama and music, I think. Is that correct? Is your mic on?
No, your mic's not on.
Yep, you're unmute.
He's not on mute. He's just his mic's just. There you go.
There you are.
Go.
How you doing?
Result.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just felt like.
Who's got the lag now?
Okay. Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah, we all do. So, so we're dealing with it. So, Mark, I don't know. I knew I had to write something for this character who was basically a monster, right? And he started as a child, became a monster as a child, but then the next time you see him, he's like a decade older, and he's talking to a narration, and I don't, it just struck me, maybe this is something this kid Mark can do. He seems like he made a good impression in the audition. You came in an audition for a role. I don't even remember if I used you for the role, maybe, but the main thing was like your voice, your personal voice that you have stayed with me, and I thought, okay, this is the guy who can play this young monster, basically this person who's becoming a monster. And I know it's ridiculous to cast someone as a monster, right? To begin with is strange, but he totally pulled it off. And I think the episode that you premiered in season 2, episode 1, is one of our most downloaded episodes. And I think it's largely on your ability to sell that character.
So I gotta throw in on this one because I've been going through Mandible Judy in the couple of days or so before this, and as it happened, I take my walks with my dog. I'm going about a 4-mile walk or so every day, and podcasts are my juice, right? Well, my phone played that out of order, and so out of random, I was in season 1, and Mark pops on. I happen to have already been associated with these guys for a while now, so I know Mark's voice, and I was like, I'm really very truly taken aback by going, holy shit, Mark can fucking act, because it portrayed this like in a way that you don't tend to find, certainly not with younger people, but in general, I think that actors struggle with finding the right line between overacting and underacting. And the portrayal of that particular character, especially when you're dealing with this like sort of unwilling or involuntary participant, almost phantom limb of your own body, was just fuck. And it made that character, and not only the character, but the story, the extended universe around the character, that much richer, which I think is a thing that cannot happen without the acting. I mean, you can write as much as you want in terms, you look at you could go the David Foster Wallace route and have footnotes for fucking everything. But if you don't have your actor who portrays just the subtleties and just a little bit of insecurity here and just a little bit of like the hesitation or the frustration or the whatever that humans respond to in such a visceral way, just damn it, you just can't get it otherwise. It just doesn't work.
Then take that the next step and you think, Mark's 20.
Yeah.
Where can you go from here? It's awesome.
Mark, you've peaked.
Well, and
you're fucked.
Yeah, that's it, man. You're done. You see that closet back there? Just go in it. Go
Not to flex, I was 19 when I read for that episode. And
I'm abusing teenagers.
No, it's actually funny. Like I was 18 when Chris gave me my first role. He gave me the same character before he turns into the Mudskoggin.
Oh, that's right.
And that was when all those musical theater kids came in. And they did that whole group of kids for I think it was the first episode of season 2. And I was 18 at the time. And then when we recorded for
barely legal
and your students in season 3 episode 1, which is I think what Clayton's talking about, that was
yes,
that I was 19 when that happened. So it's kind of like, man, I'm just realizing that like time really flies. I can't believe that I can't believe I did my first. I can't believe I debuted over like a year ago with that character.
Dude, it doesn't get any slower.
Right. No, and you talk about time flying. I remember being, like 15 years old, walking around in the city I lived in at the time with a boombox like he's got behind Chris there, blasting Motley Crue, with bandanas and earrings and all that crazy stuff. So, and then you look in the mirror and you go, it's like 30 years later. What the?
Is that gray? Am I balding? Fuck. When did that happen?
It's amazing what marijuana will do to your brain.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I'm allergic to that. It was acid that did that to me. So,
oh man.
Think that shit.
But this kind of ties into the whole acting family thing. Like once an actor kind of like hits you with something and you realize how good they are.
Yeah.
When you know they're coming in, it's like I can't just give them a flat scene. I know they can do something, so I'm gonna write something just for them because I can't just have them come in and do to be the chauffeur. The chauffeur is gonna have a monologue, and so I find myself doing that a lot, and so sometimes the actor without doing anything, encourages you to up your writing game because they're good. If you have an A-list actor, you're going to write something amazing for them. So it's the same with your family of actors. That's why I think you're right. It's important to have actors you admire and trust and are good, and you have to give them what it takes to be good. And so I don't know. I am inspired by actors as much as I am using them to sort of fulfill this preconceived notion of what my vision is.
God, that was
So Mark, keep doing what you're doing.
That was the most unexpected advancement as an author that I ever had. Was that I really in all of my arrogance, I was like, oh no, it's my creative engine. But as soon as you get that actor who you fall in love with, and you go, this person, I want this person to feel good about this next piece. I want to impress, ultimately, because I think that's what it is. Sort of it's our introvert need to get someone that we write the Valentines and they get a thing and they go, oh, thank you for the approval. You want that need of, holy shit, I really enjoy this piece, and they get to I'm a garbage carpenter, but I can write, and if someone gets to do that role and loves that role, that character takes on such a larger amount of depth and a larger amount of God, it's just you're absolutely right, Brett. The inspiration behind it becomes so much easier to put out the work. It's this constant multiplying effect that it's just wonderful.
Well, even in another way, it's like you're not paying them what they're worth. So I'm going to pay you by writing you an amazing scene.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll do that. It's like, dude, or dudette, whatever. you're so good. I wish I could be paying you so well right now, but all I can do is give you this awesome scene. And of course, to an actor, that's better than money. So, it's funny the things that we do that kind of help us stretch,
Yeah, it's bizarre, and it'll happen in like a weird small role, but it'll happen in the big roles too. We had in Garfield's Crossing an actor pop in and do a complete throwaway character. It happened to be a completely different gender and the whole bit, and it was on a read. They were reading the copy for every single character, and they hit Patty, who is driving around an Astro van made more of rust than paint, and wearing a flowered frock. This guy Victor Riviera voiced her. And now Patty has shown up in multiple other things because we're like, Victor, we need you everywhere.
I've got a number of I'm really, really lucky with Mandible Judy. I don't know how I found myself in like the mother lode of voice acting, audio drama voice acting, but somehow it just happened. I don't know, a convergence of events. But Mike, who plays Connor Darcy, his screen name is actually Connor Darcy. Clayton, who plays Walter in Under Dead Water. Mark, I mean, I can't name all of them, but I mean, I was just working yesterday with Nancy Graham, who plays Renee in Mandible Judy, and she's voicing a new character in Under Dead Water named Ebba. And Ebba is, I'll just like write an adjective-rich sentence or two about the character as best I can. And then if I have an actress like Nancy, I know that she will take that and run with it. And she gave me 3 different readings for this character, one of which was, really good, but I would say the least stressful on her voice. Right, that's always something you have to consider, right? So I was like, I need to hear that, right, in case we have to fall back on it. And then, but it was a little too similar to her character Renee because it sounded like her a bit, right? The second reading was like kind of way witchier, like this is an evil character, right? Way witchier and kind of little cackly, and it played in a semi-comedic way, which was awesome. Horror and comedy go hand in hand. I had no problem with that. And then she said, let me try this one other thing. And she did this deep, like bruiser voice, like this voice of like you picture her like 7 feet tall, and like ready to knock you the fuck out, right? And I was like, that is scary. That is perfect. I just forget the other 2. If you can pull that off in every episode, that's so good, And I knew she would come up with it if I gave her time. And I said to her, like, thank you so much. I don't know how I find people like you. And she said, I'm acting. I'm doing what I love. This is like, you don't need to thank me. This is like thanks in itself. You gave me a good character to run with,
So I've got a question for everyone.
Go ahead. You were going to say, Clayton.
Who writes or does acting or any of that nature, anything creative. Why is it always the third try? It's always the third take or the third try that is 100%. I'm like, I could tell you to do anything. It wouldn't. The first 2 are almost in the 20 or 30 things that I've put together so far that I've done with other actors. I will almost always throw out the first 2 because that third one hits it just so, and you're like, yep, there we go. All right, there we go. I don't have to do it anymore. I throw out the other 2 takes. Here we go.
Well, that actually, it reminds me too. I'm looking really forward because I'm lucky enough that Chris has brought Connor into Under Dark Water as Connor. So I don't have to change anything. I'm just me.
Mr. Darcy.
That means that when I run into whoever Clayton's character is, I'll be able to get on here and practice lines with him. I haven't been able to do that in forever with anybody. I've had to do all my lines. And I think that's exactly one of the reasons why, the third take is always the good take, because I have to sit here, read the script, and then most of the time I cold read. Like I'll read as I'm, going through it and fumble and then go back. And I did leave you some bloopers this last time finally because I couldn't say the name for some reason. Anyway,
always the best.
Yeah. But by the time you get to that third take, you've gone, oh, okay, now I know what this scene is. But with somebody to bounce off of, you should be able to get it in, the first take if you just get that bounce. But if you're talking to just a mic and a
and a blanket, there's a fun. I think for me personally, when I'm doing the voice acting, it absolutely is like, well, I've already done the first two that are safe. I may as well stretch. What the hell? And when you do, it just is like, fuck, cool. That's where we went? All right.
Then the director is like half asleep, goes like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, you get the whole, like, they gain 3 inches? What?
Absolutely.
Had my cappuccino, but no.
Excellent.
I'll get stuffy here for a minute, Clay. This is actually a $175 sound blanket.
I wouldn't dream of besmirching the name of that. Yeah, no. It this is not everyone's cup of tea. It's a pain in the ass. I would love to have one of those,
but I don't have the space.
It's not worth it. Your blankets are better.
I want to show you guys.
It's gonna tell you right now.
It's just
Yeah.
And like,
yeah.
There you go.
That does it.
That helps.
You can see I have my mic like right here, just because I try to prevent it from bouncing all around, and not to be rude, but my neighbors, like they're like I don't know why, but like I can they wake up screaming at each other and I can hear it. Like
I've got a set right here.
Yeah.
Are they literally fucking neighbors? In which case, you could get a whole lot of work. I just want to put that out there. You just put the contact mic on the wall and then sell it to Pornhub or whatever.
Yes.
Mine would definitely be a horror podcast.
Or whatever they're doing, man. Just record it.
These are the screaming, throwing things. Get the fuck out of here, neighbors. So
it's all background noise. This is your ambient.
Oh, nice.
Just loop it.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris,
we record in a small house
Lee Eddy,
in a neighborhood. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just
going to say
Lee
Eddy is one of our actresses who's in.
Okay, everybody reset. Everybody reset.
All right, Brett, go ahead.
I want to hear the Lee Eddy story. What?
No, he dropped out.
He's resetting.
There.
All right, we're good.
Go ahead, please, Brett.
No, after the Lee Eddy story.
Are you familiar with Lee Eddy? She's okay.
No, but now
she's
I don't
awesome.
know.
She's a really fine actress out of Austin, and so her problem is neighbors who mow their lawns because it's Austin. So she's in the suburbs and people are mowing lawns all day long, and she's like, God. And she'll just stop, and it's great because you get the best bloopers, like fucking neighbors. What the, it's really fun.
It gets full on Tourette's.
Yeah,
God,
you have to bleep it, but it's so good.
Bitch and fuck ass.
That's exactly where I was going. We record in a small house in a neighborhood, and there's the inevitable leaf blower and the truck.
Oh my God.
One
the
show
dog
I was going
or the
to
neighborhood kids
as my next show, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not, is like a Gothic story. So it's like half of it would take place in the 1700s, half in the 1800s. But then I realized we would have to like be able to, there couldn't be a passing plane, a leaf blower, a car, a truck.
Right.
You can kind of get away with it sometimes, and especially once we started talking about 3D audio and like that really kind of like high fidelity stuff.
Oh yeah.
It just, I don't think it can happen unless we're in a totally controlled environment, which we can't be. So unfortunately, every story has to involve a leaf blower.
I do want to point
or a
out,
car or a siren or a plane.
You might know someone who is hungry for clients.
What's that wall you're stroking back there?
That's the sound studio I built. So it's kind of a fun place because it's and I'll have to take you in there sometime. It's like a 5 by almost 7 by 4 or so. And so it was funny. We had my first voice actor who went in there and tested it. She was doing a small bunch of bit parts, one of which was a waitress. And so she was like getting all doing this thing and walking around. And she was like, holy shit, I've never been in a voice booth that like I could move and extend my arms and like do things without having to worry about smacking the shit out of a mic or a hand or whatever. So it is available. Just pointing that out. There she is, right back there.
Yes.
Don't let him fool you, though.
We'll take this off. We'll take this to a breakout room and discuss.
He says he'll take you in there, but there's actually like a very small hot tub. And
an awkward bit there. The door actually sticks because it's all wood. It does swell.
Already making excuses.
And it does. It's the door stick. Oh no, the door's stuck. I guess we're in here for a while. It's a shame it's soundproofed. Way to be
Bret,
gross
you were
about
talking
it.
about you were looking to do a gothic thing. You're talking about audio drama, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, when I was doing the fantasy series, or at least the promo that I was trying to get done, it's completely fantasy. So, I have to have none of that stuff.
No combustion engine.
Yeah, nothing like that. And I've got central air in this place, and you know how central air works on a. My God, it doesn't matter where you put the mic, you're going to get the vibration. But I built the background first with audio design and everything like that. So I've got the opening scene set up on a hill overlooking a town, and you've got the town in the background that's starting to come awake, and it's nighttime and there's a festival going on. And I just slowly started out with like a soundscape that has to do with a forest, and you've got the birds and stuff like that, and then you slowly build everything into it. Then you take the voices and stuff and put it on top of that, and I didn't have any issue with the background stuff. So I mean, it's all
there's just enough layers that it was a little more forgiving of something that might have been in the voice track. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talking about that.
Well,
serious
I won't give up the
topic,
idea
though.
then.
Don't
go
give
back
it up.
to the drawing board.
For the love of God, don't give it up.
I'll go to Clayton's black and red room with a sticky door.
The murder studio. We call it this. This is good.
On my day job today, I'm editing the audio commentary for a new version of Silence of the Lambs, or the new release of Silence of the Lambs.
Really?
So I'm very cautious about going to anyone's house, especially if there's lotion or sewing machines and things like that. So
there was
anyway.
There was a
I'll
fucked
put
up.
in the. Sorry, Clayton. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say I'll put so you can hear the sound design yourself. I put just the first part of the trailer
in the
public broadcast text chat for whenever you want to listen to.
But
go ahead. Sorry.
I had well back before I started smoking and destroyed my voice. Some people they'll smoke and they sound fantastic. It just gives them character and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It took an octave off of either side of my range. It was just garbage. But prior to all that, I had one of my buddies back in high school. His mom's name is Charisse, and so we went very much in the "Hello, Charisse. It's nice to see you again." Had the lamb stop screaming, Charisse, and she fucking lost it because she was also a big fan of Sounds of the Lambs and the whole bit, and she couldn't deal with me answering the phone. So it was just not good. At least it didn't go Buffalo Bill. I never answered the phone. Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. I'm sorry. Can I talk to Robert? Does he know his homework yet?
And anybody I ever meet that's named Barbara, I always want to talk to them on the phone and say, "They're coming to get you, Barbara."
Oh man.
He's in the house.
My favorite joke in Shaun of the Dead is when they quote that line from Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, don't move. Stay there. We're coming to get you, Barbara. And like 5 people went, "Thank you."
So classic. That movie was genius.
Yeah,
I've never
it's
been.
brilliant.
I've never seen a horror movie, a comedic horror movie, that had the ability to actually hit me emotionally by the end. Like when his mom becomes infected and they find out, like that hit me.
Yeah, it's kind of rough.
I was not ready for that because I mean the rest of it's just hilarious.
Killer team, man. Killer
The
team.
guys do a damn good job. I think the only one that really misses its mark has got to be Paul. I don't feel like Paul really hit it out of the park, but almost every other one. I mean,
Paul, the geeky guy with the glasses.
No, Paul was the alien one.
The alien movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, yeah.
I didn't
which
see that. Yeah,
had the Sigourney Weaver cameo. Which she's so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Give me Sigourney in anything. I don't care. She's she's just phenomenal.
She super surprised me when she showed up in one of the Marvel TV series. She showed up in she was in what's the one about the Iron there's Iron Fist. Iron Fist.
Really?
Yeah, she's a bad guy. She owns a corporation.
Nice.
Fair enough.
She was brilliant.
But I think all the rest of them hit real well. I mean, Hot Fuzz is great. The Run, is it Run?
Love Hot Fuzz.
What the fuck is it?
What was
Run, Fat Boy,
Hot
Run.
Fuzz is the shit.
And what was the one about the end of the world? The
I think it's
the
end
bar
of the world.
hopping. The bar
Is
hopping.
it the end of the world? Baby Driver.
Is it the bar at the end of the world?
Oh, now you're gonna.
No, I think it's just the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
You can make me look it up.
All I'm thinking of right now is, "Hello, Nicholas. How's the hand? Still a bit stiff." It's like my favorite joke in that whole movie.
The number of times, and no one in my family gets it, that I'll go, "Nobody tells me nothing." Nobody fucking gets it. And I'm like, it's hilarious. How do you not find that funny? And they're like, my wife.
That's a little obscure, I'm just gonna say.
I mean, it's fair. My wife is just like, another stupid reference. Okay, all right.
The World's End. It was the name of the bar.
The World's End. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
The World's End. Thank
So
you.
I do have to then give me a follow up here on that. Of the people in a relationship of long term or not, or just a history of relationships, how many of you guys get just the huge eye rolls anytime that you bring in your either remote references or your constant kind of talking about geeking out about a particular thing, where you'll hit that inspiration moment? You're like, but you don't understand. They're cats. It's a thing. They're like, what the fuck? Go back to sleep. It's 3 a.m.
Right.
Yeah, to give you like a quick, I've got that more than most. Because I just celebrated.
You're a nerd.
No, I just celebrated 10 years. I've been with my partner for 10 years.
Nice.
And this is going to sound really bad, but there's a big story behind it. But in general, she's half my age.
Okay.
So if there's anybody that's going to get the eye roll, it's somebody who's my age referencing shit from the 80s before they even existed.
Lord.
So
Yeah.
yes, I get the eye roll all the fucking time.
Yeah. Do you get OK Boomer?
You win
ever?
this.
No.
Oh, no.
They know I'm Gen X, so we're good with that. But no, I get dad joke all the time. That's a great dad joke. Oh, God, shut up.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, so yeah, I get
Yeah,
that
yeah.
all the time. And I know,
Yeah.
Chris, you've got it. You absolutely have to get it.
Oh my god. Yeah, you can't imagine. I mean, for 10 years of my life I spent performing live music in a community of people, the chiptune community, which is quick primer, making music on vintage game consoles. That's all I'm going to say. But it's a really fun community. People are super nice, and there's not a lot of competition because nobody's making a fortune.
Right.
I love it. But, you know, I am easily the oldest guy in that scene. And you know, I'll pull out a Brian Eno cover at a show, and it'll be like a Dead House. And I'll be like,
how?
Brian Eno,
he's
come on,
still
you
fucking
guys."
relevant.
I know. Whatever. And then so I remember I had a friend say to me, "I really like your stuff, but sometimes I'm just kind of like, okay, Grandpa." Like,
damn it.
So I want
to punch you in the
I
throat.
couldn't hate him for that.
Just for a second here, I
couldn't
want
hate
us
him
all
for
to
that.
look at that one frame in our little group here of the guy that's not paying attention because none of this affects him. Yep, there he is. He got it.
I'm in and out.
Oh yeah, but you're not in this, man. Don't
He's
you
like,
worry.
I'm multitasking.
No.
Bitch, I got a
Yeah.
phone and an iPad and a thing over here. I can pay attention.
Listen,
I got my
Zoomer.
Xbox. So.
Yep.
But see,
Mark,
I mean,
I'm just gonna throw stuff at
well,
you.
it reached the point where you just like, I don't want to share that thing that because if someone doesn't get it, or doesn't appreciate it, it's going to be too painful.
Yes.
So I'd rather just let that be my
But
little
you
thing.
write it all the way out,
that-
right? You write it
Because
out.
You're gonna take that, tuck it
it's
away.
kinda like, if I show you this movie, it's like reading my diary
Yeah.
when I was 16. And if I show you that and you shrug, it's
Lord.
going to kill me. So
Oh,
I'll
let's just-
give you
this
one. I'll
is
give
gonna
you
be
the
my
perfect
little
example.
memory.
This is the perfect example from Mark right here. I'll give you a reference. All of you are going to get it. Mark will not get it. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Consume.
Getting singled out here.
Come on, Mark.
Yeah.
Consume.
What is
You
it
might
from?
This
get
is your
that.
chance.
Hold on,
Consume.
wait.
Yeah.
You might get the
Let me do like a quick Google search. I promise you I'll be able to
Consume.
No.
You're not gonna
And
get it.
keep your hands visible.
Yeah.
I just thought you might get the John Carpenter version of that.
Mhm.
Maybe.
See, you got it. You understood the
the-
reference.
I was telling Chris this earlier. The number of things that I've written to the dark wave synth, right, or the John Carpenter specifically, the number of times I've just had this piping into my brain so that I can write is absurd.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying
It
to.
puts you in a place and time.
Oh, for sure.
Tell me that movie didn't have the first longest fist fight that nobody got hurt in ever.
I know.
It did.
It's hilarious. I love how long that fist fight is. Every time I watch it, I'm just laughing through the whole thing.
God, and it's such a trope at this point, unfortunately. But
yeah,
it is bizarre.
It's the Alien movie.
But let me-
The Alien movie.
It's called They Live.
They
Which
live.
one?
Yeah, I know. With
They
the
Live.
wrestler.
Which,
I've seen.
actually-
I love that. I remember that fist fight. I love that scene.
The
All right. Okay. Good.
The callback
There
to
you
the
go.
original in the very beginning of the Control Group, it reminds me of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and
them.
And it freaked me the fuck out because I was like, they're gonna come out of the shelter and there'll be giant fuck off ants. That's what's gonna happen.
And I don't know if any of you have ever seen them. They're gone now, but Fry's Electronics.
Yeah.
One of the greatest Fry's I've ever
Yep.
been to was here in LA or in the general area where they had one where it had the Mars
Yeah,
attacks.
bigger in the Southwest.
It had the Mars attacks UFO
Yeah.
crashed into the front,
Yep.
and inside they had one of those ants. They had it was enormous. It
It
was
was the most
perfect.
Oh
bizarre
my God. I love
store. They had all the themed. It was the Mayan
Mhm.
or the
was
spacecraft or the whatever.
They
It
even
was
had
bizarre.
they even had the saucer of the 171 Star Trek, the Enterprise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, man.
For a very, very long time, I had irrational fears, and to this day, if I have like a full blown night terror, you are guaranteed that it's ants in my veins, and it's from that
Wow.
fucking movie I saw as a child and made an impression. I'm not scared of ants in real life, But in my dream, in the full blown like level 4 Delta sleep whatever, ants. Oh, it's not good. It's a bad day.
I've broken a lot of my phobias, but if there was a horror movie that ever got me when I was young, I was 5, I think it was. And it was probably the only thing that William Shatner ever impressed me in, and probably because I was 5. But the Kingdom of the Spiders.
William Shatner was in
Wow.
Yep, that's an old one. Oh my God, yeah. It's absolutely horrible now. It does not live up because they use tarantulas, tons of them, which of course, you know, there was a plane that crashed, tarantulas, and they take over the entire town using webs, which tarantulas don't use. Also, tarantulas are poisonous. But regardless, you know, I'm like 5 years old, tons of spiders ruined me for years, and then I finally was like, okay, spiders are 1/100th my size. I should not be afraid of them.
Squick.
I should respect them. That's it. You know,
it's funny when you confront certain childhood traumas. For me, it was like the trailer for It's Alive. I don't know if anyone saw that. Remembers that with the kid and the poster for Frogs. Again, a hand coming out of the frog's mouth. But then when you actually watch the movies, you think, wow, this is what I was terrified of. And really, I wasn't terrified of the movie. It was the trailer that shocked me. But sometimes it's good to just let those childhood horrors remain traumatic and not,
my word.
You know.
There absolutely needs to be an Academy Awards for people who put together the trailer and people who put together the movie poster. Because that is such an art in and of itself. You're like,
sometimes it's better than the movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, in fairness, some of the comedies are like, I'm going to take every funny moment, I'm going to cram it all in the trailer. But there's 100% like you talk about anyone trying to produce a trailer for anything, especially in this day and age, trying to produce a trailer that captures an audience and then brings them into whatever they're doing. That is such just a niche talent. How do you take a 2 or 3 hour flick, grab little bits and pieces here and there, tell a story that may or may not be the actual story, right? That may or may not, that will ruin. Exactly right. It's just phenomenal, and you got to give them the credit.
Favorite trailer of all time, Dr. Strangelove.
Yes,
by a very long shot.
Yep.
Oh. What an amazing trailer! It's oh my God, it's so good, and it just like you get that it's a comedy, and then you get that it's a doomsday story, but that's all you really need, and then you get a bunch of Peter Sellers, of course, you know. So you know, bizarre. But yeah, it's so good.
I think one of the premier examples of somebody creating a trailer that captures attention, and then the movie, you just like, this is not this. It was a 1970s sci-fi movie that I think had the name Jericho in it or something like that. But regardless, I remember hearing on the radio the trailer about this movie, and it sounded so good. And I was like begging my foster parents, please, I got to go see this movie. I got to go see this movie. And I don't remember what happened in something, you know, I got grounded. They went and saw the movie, but I couldn't see the movie. And then years later, I saw the movie and I was like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't go see that movie. That was bad. That was horrible.
And looking at the difference between, I mean, I don't know if you guys have gone back and watched an older trailer. The trailers, like you watched the trailer for Halloween. Please, it is so atrocious and cringeworthy.
Never mind the trailers. What about the movie?
I mean, you're right.
Look, I don't hate John Carpenter. I love John Carpenter, but his editing, what the hell, man? It's so slow.
Oh yeah.
You're just like cut through the whole thing. The worst offender to me is and it's a great movie because it's so weird, but Escape from New York. It's just endless. Everything is so slow. It just ponders on and on and on, and you're like, dude, you know, what did I pay to see this movie for? Like, come on, like, what's happening? You know,
you paid to hear.
Snap it up, dude. Come on.
I'm Snake Plissken. That's what you paid to hear. Because that guy, what an iconic character.
So,
Speaking of the bizarre
that is true.
80s flicks that are also horror and scarred us as children, and the rest of us on this podcast or stream or we talk about it have specifically called this out. Bret, as a guy who digs older flicks, certainly digs horror flicks, and enjoys that kind of deal. What are your experiences or opinions of? And I'm going to fuck up the title because it's extremely long. Return of the Night of the Living Dead.
You mean Return of the Living Dead?
Yeah, it's just called Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one with the pumps.
I was a George Romero purist, and because Dawn of the Dead is the movie that changed my life. So when Return of the Living Dead came out, I was like, this is not George Romero. I won't see it.
Right.
And I still haven't seen it.
Really?
And it's weird. I was a real snob about a lot of films that I look back and I was that way about music. There's certain music. Oh, I won't listen to that. And now I'm just now discovering so much good music of the 80s and 90s because I had no room to be a snob because I didn't know anything. But yet there were certain movies I was like, oh no. I won't entertain the thought of seeing that. And ended up just depriving myself of so many good films and so much good music. So that's something I'm trying to cure myself of, and hopefully I have a 20-year-old, and fortunately he doesn't have that. He has great taste, but he's somewhat discriminating. But I had discriminating taste that was so discriminating it was like bigoted. You know what I mean? It was just like I'm keeping myself from enjoying good stuff because I so want to be right about. So anyway, that's my
guilty as well.
Living Dead.
But you know what? Can I just say? I think I may have a lot to do with the pre-internet generation. That might be a big part of it because we had to seek stuff out, and when we found it, it meant a lot to us. Therefore, we were much more discerning about things, right? But I did go back with some of my younger friends and watch Return of the Living Dead about a year and a half ago, and I loved it. It's nothing like George Romero, but it's awesome. It's Dan O'Bannon. It's like, he's really brilliant in his own way. And I'd never seen anything he had directed. I've seen things he's written, obviously, as we all have. Alien, primary amongst them. But it's really good. It's really funny. It takes the Dawn of the Dead sense of humor and applies it to a different scenario, and makes it a bit more punk rock.
And they
awesome.
break the fourth wall all over the place in it too, which is awesome.
Yeah,
we got to do a follow up.
It's nice
because you need to
have some things to discover. Everyone needs blind spots.
Yeah,
there's so many great movies I've not seen, so it's good to leave yourself some blind spots so that you can you have something to go back and visit.
True.
With perspective.
So on that note, should we? Yeah, it's after 11.
Mm-hmm.
We could continue if you want. I have no problem continuing. I do have one more question, actually, Bret. And this is really specific. You were talking about how, you're somewhat disillusioned with filmmaking. I assume that doesn't mean that you don't appreciate great films anymore. Obviously, once a student of film, always a student of film. But have you seen a recent film called The Vast of Night?
I have not.
It's really, really
should
good.
I?
Yeah, I think you should really see it. It has a vibe that to me is very much like 60s sci-fi television, which is kind of what I'm all about. When people were before the advertisers said, what the hell is this? It's too long, or whatever they said. This is too esoteric. Things like The Outer Limits, the first two seasons, the original two seasons. If The Vast of Night definitely is calling back on a lot of that style. It's it's almost like I would say and I wish I could remember the filmmaker's name. He's from Texas, I know that. and I think it was his first feature. But it's super stylized.
Anderson Patterson.
And it takes place in. Thank you. That's him. It takes place in one night in this small Texas town, and it's basically a UFO story. But it's not like a monster story. You don't get any of the payoff that you and frankly, you don't feel like you need it because the story is so engaging, and the characters are so engaging. And he does that thing that Orson Welles does so well in his early films, where people are just talking over each other because he came from theater, right?
Yeah.
There's that interplay between people's dialogue, and it just feels so real. You know, you feel like you're there, and there's add to that a fairly somewhat extensive use of GoPro gadgets, like things that they use to put a GoPro on and propel it places. There's one amazing scene where, so the whole thing, since you're in this one town, knowing where everyone is in the town is super important, right? Because you have to understand who's hearing what news when, right? And there's this one scene that goes from the main part, the main scenario environment, which is a radio station, to a high school gymnasium, and it just literally travels through the town, and you don't think for a second this is a gimmick. You don't think for a second, you know, it's so engaging. I don't know how he did it. And it was literally like, you know, they built a little dolly and put a GoPro on it, and well, with a steady cam, I'm sure, and they just ran the damn thing through the town, you know, and it looks like it's on a drone, but it's not drone footage. Because it would be impossible to fly a drone like that. Sorry?
So when it came out, I'll definitely watch it now.
Yeah. It was on Amazon when it came out. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I was going to quote Chris Burke from earlier in the podcast where he said, "Yes, I'll add that to the 10,000 things I've already got on my list."
Look, man, it got a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. You cannot go wrong on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. It's kind of the thing, if you bothered.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you bothered to vote on it, I think if you bothered to vote for it or on it at all, you probably loved it. And I think it's a love it or hate it kind of thing. It's pretty cerebral, but it's still exciting somehow, to me at least. I don't know. Go ahead, Mike.
How is it that Rotten Tomatoes has literally stayed relevant for the past like 2 decades? We still trust it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Brett.
No, just I always welcome suggestions from people for movies, because I have sort of lost my passion for new movies, and it's again, it's trying to remember that 16-year-old self and letting myself be excited about something that I see instead of overanalyzing it from the very beginning. So, you know, I welcome the opportunity to see something that someone recommends that kind of brings them back to that, or, you know, awakens in them some sort of excitement about the medium.
Yeah, for sure, take a look at The Vast Night, because it is an awesome flick. And honestly, just to throw back to the other one, I'm very interested in what your take of Return of the Living Dead would be, because I think it scared the absolute shit out of me as a kid.
Me too,
It is still fairly got a couple of really chilling scenes.
Yeah, it's gory.
It works in a lot of ways that it shouldn't work, because it's very tongue in cheek.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
glad
interested to see your
waited
take.
till now, because now I'm gonna be more open to it, and wanting to like experience this thing that I missed when I was 17.
All right, man. Well, you know, shit. Where can people find what you got going on? I know you also have another more art-related project, right? Because you're doing some stuff for the community as well.
Yeah, well, Rob Gow, who does our recording and music and sound design and everything, is an amazing musical performer, and I'm trying to collaborate with him somehow on something where he has created an extended piece of music to which I'm aspiring to write a story which will be woven through that 25-minute piece of music. So, and the issue with that is I have yet to be able to write something that I feel is as good as the music is that he provided. But I love that kind of challenge, and I it's kind of like when we talk about working with an actor. I want to work with actors who are better actors than I am writers, and Rob is a better composer than I am a writer. But that's great. It's encouraging me to reach, and with any luck, I'll write something. Right. So the first one, he's working on a second piece now, which is going to be psychedelic, which I am kind of into exploring right now. So he has yet to unveil it to me. So that's the thing we're going to be doing soon. And I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a podcast or we're going to release it as a piece of music. I don't know, but it's a good time to, since the boundaries are sort of low between music and podcast and different kinds of storytelling. It's a good time to embark on something and not necessarily know what it's going to be, where it's going to be released, or when. So, you know, we do what we can to keep the creative juices flowing, and that's one of the faucets that I am currently trying to keep open.
Yeah.
And you know, speaking of our love of classic anthology television, for my day job, I'm helping with our upcoming releases of Kolchak the Night Stalker on Blu-ray, awesome, as well as the Night Gallery. So we have a lot of cult episodic TV coming out on Blu-ray later this year. So
do you have a favorite Night Gallery episode? Because I do.
You know, I saw a couple of episodes as a kid, and they scared me so much I've not seen them since. So I'm looking forward to being able to sit down and do a deep dive and like go through the entire series. But what is the favorite?
It's called The Big Surprise, and it's God, what's his name? Oh my God, very famous character actor. So who was it that played?
No googling, no googling. Come on, hands up.
No, yeah, no. Sorry, John. It's a family. Keith, John, and David. David Carradine.
Yeah.
John Carradine. John Carradine plays a farmer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's so amazing. He just so iconic. Like that look that he's got is just it's a trope in itself. Like just his look, right? And this episode is awesome because it's totally scary, but it's also hilarious. Like you just bust out laughing at the end because it's literally a punchline episode, you know, and it's just so good. You know, that series obviously came after Twilight Zone. Rod Serling had kind of already done a whole bunch of really inventive television with Twilight Zone. I don't know the whole story about why he left Twilight Zone and went to Night Gallery. I imagine he needed a new deal to do what he wanted. But
well, it's funny. One of the things I do, or the main thing I do on these projects, because someone named Frank Tarzi at Kino actually produces those releases, but I edit the commentary tracks. So I get to, while I'm having this deep dive, get to hear people talking about that very thing, the history of what was going on with Rod Serling or John Carradine, where he was at his career and who wrote this episode and what else they did. So that's where my head is a lot, getting to absorb so much about these series that, are kind of our staples of our, cultural education, but getting to know so much more about the backstories.
Awesome.
So yeah, I've got that to look forward to.
Right on.
But thanks for having me on. The Control Group you can find on all major podcast platforms, and so they're releasing it one episode at a time. And but if you wanted to binge something, season 1 is out in its entirety, as well as The Seventh Daughter, which is my other scripted podcast for iHeartRadio.
And The Seventh Daughter is fucking amazing.
and seek out Bret's films because they're really really inventive and really original. And I have yet to see the documentary stuff that you did early on about the kind of basically film related documentaries, I guess you could call them, but they look really inspired, and I look forward to digging into that as well.
Well, thank you, and I have greatly enjoyed this conversation, and it's things like this that kind of are invigorating and plant the seeds of new ideas and keep the motivation going to maybe I will do that one more season or that one more episode.
Yes.
Or I'm going to go back to that script that I could not lick. I'm going to give it one more shot. So it's nice that we may badmouth the internet, but it's a way to have a creative community when we can kind of inspire and support each other. So I love the opportunity to talk to you and do that very thing.
Thanks, Bret.
Right on, guys. Well,
thank you all for being here.
That note, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Talk to y'all soon. Take care.
We'll see you.
Bye.